There's a disproportionate of people who keep watching this thing and don't like do all the like and subscribe stuff. So whoever you are, I'm going to hunt you down and give you a nuggie.
Clint, nice to see you.
Hey, Bok, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling old.
Nah, age is but a mindset. Even though in crypto, time can feel like years. So, yeah, I can relate.
That's it. Aging in dog years at the minute, I think, for this market.
Yeah, it's been a long bear, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh well. What is the chicken aging ratio? Do they age quicker or slower than humans?
The aging ratio of chickens, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
That's
Like dogs, like 7 years or something.
yeah, that's a good question. And IRL chickens, I'm not sure. I would have to resort to Google, but in the chicken game with digital chickens, the lifespan is infinite. So that's the good news.
2 seconds, just sending the link out.
Do you mind if I add a few links or tweets to the Jumbotron?
Yeah, go for it, of course.
Awesome. Did you have a nice birthday?
Well, it's like so we're gonna go have some nice food later, and then I think we're gonna celebrate tomorrow a little bit more degenerately because England play late on the evening, so we're gonna watch England beat the US.
Oh, that'll be a good game. I'll have to probably tune in as well.
How do you see how you've added the link? How do you even do that?
So if you go to a tweet, you can click on the tweet and then press the share tab, like you're going to copy the link and send it to somebody. And then in that share option, the very first option will be add to the space that you're in. So if you're a speaker or a host on a Twitter space, you're able to add links, which is very convenient because people that are listening in on the audience or are listening in on the replays, those links are available throughout the duration of the space. So yeah, very convenient. But this video, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it was released over the weekend during the Chikn 1 year anniversary or birthday party. And they released this 90-second animation that I thought was very beautiful to watch, but also very telling of potentially what is going to be coming into the Chiknverse. So I thought I'd share it to anybody who wants to give it a watch.
So there might be some hidden alpha in there.
Oh yes, there is. There's a little ring set up with some chickens and roosters squared off, for a potential cockfight. It's wonderful. Wonderful. These devs are they never cease to amaze me, I'll say that.
Yeah, I love little Easter eggs like that. That's not so apparent, but if you're so ingrained in the ecosystem yourself, you kind of pick up on them. I kind of love stuff like that.
Oh man. If you love stuff like that, then Chikn is definitely the place to be because these guys have been dropping Easter eggs since the beginning. And let me give this example. I'm sure you're familiar with it from the Medium articles. By the way, your recent blog post that you sent out on your page was fantastic. Gave it a read, and it was a great breakdown, great beginner's guide into Chikn, summarizing all of the incredible stuff that's going on within Chikn. Fantastic job.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, it was great. But some of the early Easter eggs, when the devs first opened up the Chikn Discord, some of their first messages were the early bird gets the worm. And in the tritokenomics, the feed symbol was a worm, a squiggly worm. So that was there since the beginning. They had been indicating that the worm was coming for a long time. And
Wow.
it's just fascinating to me. That's just one example. I mean, all of the Medium articles from the beginning have little tidbits of information. Like the second Medium article was talking about the value of chickens, and it was talking about the value can be comprised of aesthetically good looking chickens, the kg weight, the traits, and then here's the key, the traits or the lack thereof traits. So with our chickens, we have these attributes like my PFP as a crown PFP, or a crown trait as a head trait. And now we're rolling into foraging. And I'm sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. As you can tell, I'm eagerly
No, go
excited.
for it. Go for it.
These traits that we have on our chickens, they take up these slots, kind of like in a video game, how you have, different equipable items like armor or sword or shield, what have you. So with foraging, now in place with our chickens and roosters, venturing out onto our farmlands and gathering these resources, we're soon going to be able to craft these items and then equip them to our chickens. So again, within the second Medium article, which was put out over a year ago on this day, they were already indicating at equipable items within this ecosystem. And that to me is just, again, one of those Easter eggs, like fascinating stuff, especially now in hindsight to be able to look back, and maybe in a year from now, we're going to look back and be like, holy fuck, we had no idea how big this was going to be.
Yeah, it's having the foresight, because you've kind of got to be, you've got to have a little bit of game theory about you and think a couple of chess moves ahead. Well, in this case, like many chess moves ahead, because you need to understand how things are going to play out, how you expect them to play out, what's the probability of them playing out, so you can actually implement those things that you've suspected will happen in the roadmap further down the line. And it looks like it's all, as you say, it's all fell into place. It's kind of like when you see a movie and there's a very early indication, it might be like a little snap, like short flicker to like the murder weapon or something like that, and then it comes up at the end and you see it and it all comes full circle. So it's really impressive that they've managed to pull that off so far into the future from the launch as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It goes to it speaks volumes of their foresight, their ability. And I think, you did a fantastic job of touching on this in your article that you posted, just kind of about how there are a lot of founders out there that launch these projects and, they rake in all the mint money, they build up this treasury, and then it's mismanaged improperly, right? Buying them boats, houses, fancy dinners, stuff like that, rather than developing the game. And I think it's a very special thing to be able to find these devs within Chikn, these chicken devs that have the foresight to like launch this project and have so many things mapped out for the direction of Chikn and the trajectory of Chikn. It's a very unicorn type of feeling within this space as a whole, especially as we're in the middle of a bear. We're really seeing a lot of projects become exposed due to mishandled treasuries or lack of vision when it comes to launching a project. And I'm not trying to speak bad of any projects, but just looking at this at the scope of the space as a whole, I could go on and on about how these devs just give off this incredible unicorn type vibe, from their leadership to their humility to the way that they're able to drop these Easter eggs and the foresight to be able to do something like that, to the constant delivering of all of the launches within this ecosystem and the vision that they have for Chikn. It's just fascinating. Sorry, man, I sometimes just go on rants. But
no, it's perfect for me. It's like getting your insight from the inside out. So that's great. The delivery is like, that's one that's like I pulled out of that statement. It's the delivery of stuff relatively close to when people say they were going to do it, and also kind of the sustainability, because we've seen many projects come and go that were completely hyped that would probably be on paper kind of competitors and looked like they had the roadmaps all laid out, looks like they had their tokenomics models all laid out at the time. But now it's like they're continuing to push even in this market, and they're continuing to deliver even in this market. Whilst, as you say, don't want to point any fingers or name any names, but a lot of those people are like now dissolving into the background and ghosting and probably looking to spin up another project. And probably what you will see is they'll say, where did we go wrong? Who's still around? And then you'll probably see kind of like Chikn competitors or Chikn forks, which is a testament to how big of a moat that Chikn will have built. So I think we've already seen one that might be going on other into the fold and another chain. But as I say, I don't want to shine any light on that.
Right. Yeah, we've seen a few forks, since the release of the original white paper and the tokenomics back in November. There have been a few forks of the tri-tokenomics, especially within the AVAX ecosystem. All of them have rose and then fallen dramatically, and it speaks volumes of the ability to have somewhat of an economic background to create a sustainable tokenomics, and again, the vision to constantly be adding utility within this ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, forks are inevitable, and I think copying somebody's idea or innovation is sometimes the highest form of flattery. But I always try to do my best to really give these devs the flowers that they deserve, because what they're doing is really setting a precedent within this space, within the NFT space, for what a project should look like and what devs should look like before they launch a project. And Chikn is a wonderful case study, from the economics and the sustainable tokenomics to how everything has been rolled out. It's fantastic. I've been saying for a few months now that I strongly believe there will be a documentary made around Chikn and the Chikonomics. Yeah, but yeah, forks are inevitable, sure.
But there's kind of, I know it's a bit of a meme to say it, but there's like that you can't exactly just go on. You might be able to fork a code base, but with regards to Chikn, and we've seen it from the kind of responses and how friendly and how active everyone is when we're trying to do anything we can to kind of push the word of Chikn. But like, those projects might as well be able to spin up the code base and slap a few different graphics on top and a few NFTs and things. But the community is something that can't be forked, obviously. And it's when you're kind of creating articles and content all day, every day, and you're pushing stuff out, you pick up naturally. You pick up on different communities and on how strong they are and the engagement that you get back. Not to say that we tailor content to kind of farm that, but you kind of see it passively. And Chikn throughout these times when it's like, let's be honest, it's probably one of the worst market conditions that anyone's ever faced. And it just seems as strong as ever. It's really, really, really impressive to see.
That's facts. Are you in the Discord by any chance?
Discord. I've got a million Discords open, but Discord.
No worries. I was just curious if you spent any time in the Discord, because you're right. The community within Chikn is hands down one of the best and vibrant communities that I've ever been in. And again, it's kind of a community that was organically built by these devs, right? Like back in November of last year, just to kind of put things into context, it was, I think, November 12th is when the Chikn mint began, and it took a week for these chickens to mint out at a 1 AVAX mint price. And if I'm looking at the price of AVAX at that time, if I zoom out, it was near $100, I believe. Let me look. Yeah, it minted on November 12th. Yeah, it was about $95. And then during that mint out all the way through the 19th, it hit its like all-time high at $150. So the mint price, so they were going through this phase, and I was able to talk to them on the recent 1-year anniversary Twitter Spaces that we did, and I was asking them how they were feeling during this mint, and it was fast at the beginning. They minted about 50%, and then for 3 or 4 days there was like zero minting, and they were very fearful. And if we were put ourselves in their shoes, how much pre-planning and thought and effort went into the release of Chikn. Not only Chikn of itself, the 10,000, mimetically created chickens that have all these wonderful traits, but also the next collections, which would be farmland, which we had no idea about, roosters, which we had no idea about, foraging, crafting, equipables, all of this stuff, all of the pre-planning that went into chicken for them to then reach this point. And, for them to have the discipline to not run to an influencer and pay for any shills of chicken or pay any YouTube creators to make a video on chicken. They didn't run to the marketplace and say, hey guys, we have farmland in the works. We have a way that we're going to innovate and change LPing in this industry. They didn't do all of that. They let the market kind of decide what they wanted to do with the project. It was a very fair launch, no VC funding, as you highlighted within your blog post. And they allowed this community to find its place within chicken organically. And they've done a very good job of allowing this community to continue to grow and blossom organically. They haven't paid any influencers. They're not shilling chicken. They haven't even really spent too much money on marketing yet, which is very fascinating when you talk about the element of the organic to virality, where all of a sudden this catches fire and now everybody's talking about chicken, because we're still in the very early stages of chicken. And fast forward a year, the foundations of the game is still being rolled out. But over the year, in order for the community to continue to get stronger and stronger, I think that's kind of the specialness that, Blockmates, you were talking about these Easter eggs. That's kind of what really brought the community together and where we really bonded together. We'd spend hours over on Clubhouse, myself and a few of the other chicken OGs, we'd be talking about it. We'd bring that energy into Discord. We'd be speculating on stuff, talking about all these wild conspiracies, who the devs were before they doxed at the AVAC summit in Barcelona back in, I think it was March or April. And, all of that speculation, all of that energy just led to a very interesting camaraderie that developed within the chicken community. And it's only continued to grow as the strength of chicken has continued to grow and maintain itself within the middle of this horrible bear market that we are all facing. And it really feels like it's become somewhat of a safe haven within crypto. But if you're not involved in the chicken Discord, I strongly recommend getting into the chicken Discord. You can ask any questions that you want. And we have more than enough people that are willing and happily able to answer any questions that you got. But yeah, community is very strong.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted this in the actual kind of introduction of the article as well. It's at that time there was obviously a lot of NFT projects. I was terribly unsuccessful as buying a lot of NFT projects, but I was very much ingrained in the whole Avalanche ecosystem and still love everything they do to this day. I'm literally wearing an Avalanche t-shirt as we speak. So this, I usually get a few DMs from people that I trust in this space that will kind of nudge me in the right direction whenever there's anything interesting happen. And those same kind of people came up at the time, and I was like, right, let's take a look at this. And then obviously the chickens came out, and I was like, one, they're too hilarious not to buy. So I picked up a couple of them. But again, because of kind of the saturation at the time and how much was happening at the time, I was just like, yeah, I'll just sit on these. Didn't really. Probably should have did a bit more kind of research and due diligence. And I kind of highlighted this, and I just thought, just be another NFT project, And I was completely transparent and honest about this in the post. And then it started to click when everything started rolling out, and I was like, oh shit, I might have actually stumbled onto a winner here for the first time ever in trading NFTs. So that was kind of nice. And as I say, the source of that information. It's always good to have a little alpha group or people that you can rely on or trust their opinions. And it was coming from the right places, as you say. It wasn't coming from. We all know the kind of types that the kind of paid shows and stuff like that. And if you do kind of see content and stuff like that coming from those avenues, then you kind of steer well clear about that, because it can harm the project in and of itself if you've got the wrong people kind of talking about it. But as I say, the right kind of people within my close circles were talking about it, And I was completely honest again in the article, and I was like, I got it wrong. I assumed it was going to be another NFT project that probably sat in my wallet, give me horrific kind of PTSD every time I looked at it. But yeah, as I said, they proved me wrong dramatically.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? When you first bought a chicken, talking about how hilarious these chickens are, what was one of the traits that you saw that really pulled you into the collection when you were shopping for a chicken?
I think I'm probably scratching my brain here, but I think one had like cowboy boots and a katana or something. It was like, yes, this is. I can't not buy this.
That's awesome.
Because like there is a funny story. Like back at university, one of me and my friends, Patches. I don't know if he's here, but there was way too much beer drunk and a whiteboard at someone's house, and we actually spent a long time trying to write some formula about why chickens aren't allowed on aircrafts, like in a drunken mess. So when this came up, he was one of the people who said, "Right, we need to buy a load of these," and it was just like complete fate. But those kind of recurring jokes you have internally with close friends. He was like, "Right, let's buy a load of these."
Yeah, I mean they're very funny to look at, and I think the katana, specifically the katana, is a part of the rooster collection. The chicken have different swords. I think like one of the swords is called, let's see here, it's called Mighty Broadsword. But yeah, the traits are hilarious. I remember when I came across chicken, one of the first traits that I saw was the Super Saiyan head trait on one of the chickens, and growing up as a kid in the 90s, Dragon Ball Z was it. That was the show. And big Goku fan. And so Dragon Ball Z, as soon as I saw that, it pulled me in. But to speak again of the context of the time of when they launched, right? It was on the back of DeFi summer. It was on the all-time highs of all of these nodes, right? Like this time last year going into Thanksgiving, everybody was talking about strong nodes. They were talking about all of these different nodes, right? And I remember that, and all these rebase tokens, like Wonderland was huge on AVAX, and Galaxy goggles, and that's actually what pulled me into AVAX in and of itself. I had a buddy call me. He's like, "Bro, you're never gonna believe what this Wonderland project is. Yeah, it's just crazy." And so that's what pulled me into to AVAX as a whole. But one thing that always stood out to me was I would see these rebase projects, and I would go to, Wonderland, the Wonderland site, and I would see below where you'd be like collecting your rebases, your memory, and there would be this calculator. And it was like, how long it would take you to get a Lamborghini or something. It was like the when Lambo calculator. And to me, it's like everybody that's participating in this project is looking at the same thing on this website. And to me, there's no utility behind this token. There's no use case for it other than to sell it or to continue to compound into it. So for me, like already the hairs on my arms were standing up. Like, how is this sustainable? This doesn't make sense. And I would listen to people talk about it, and it just never really clicked for me. And so I went from rebase project to rebase project. I look at some of these node projects, and again, just the lack of utility was something that always stood out to me. And then when I came across Chikn, I was very fortunate because somebody that I was involved with in another project over on Ethereum passed over the Discord link, showed Chikn. I came in back in December of last year. I started looking at it. I looked at the white paper. I saw the tritokenomics. And to me, when the first time I saw the tritokenomics where chicken lay egg, you use egg to farm feed, and then you feed your chicken to make it bigger and it lays more egg. That to me stood out right away. I was like, this is interesting. I can get behind this. I'm going to start to dive a little bit deeper. Paid attention to some of their Twitter spaces. I listened to how the devs handled themselves on Twitter when they were asked questions. I paid attention to how they were responding in the Discord, how they were answering and helping answer questions from people within the community that needed advice or some answers and stuff. So and to me, it just started to make sense. And then I looked at like the roadmap and what's to come of this project. And, Ignite stood out, a lot. And cockfighting was what really drew me in. The ability to take these chickens and potentially, fight somebody else or or that whole concept of the gamified element behind Chikn. That's what really drew me in. And then they didn't just talk about like the gamified element, because again, the simplicity and genius of Chikn is that it's a simplistic model that's put on top of a complex DeFi world, right? Where you have a chicken that lays egg, and you use egg to get feed. You feed your chicken to make it bigger. So we have all of this egg coming into circulation, all of this egg being inflated into the ecosystem. There needs to constantly be a demand for that egg and a use case or a utility for that egg. And so as I was looking at the white paper, they had all of these burn mechanics that they're rolling out for egg. We had feeding frenzies early on when egg was first released, which burned a lot of egg. You had these gamified mints for the rooster collection, which you touched on beautifully within your blog article, which, within the rooster mint alone, there was over, how much egg was burned? I think over 1 million egg was burned, 1.2 million egg was burned during the first round of the rooster mint, the gamified mint. And you have all of these burn mechanics that are rolled out within this ecosystem. So there's a constant demand, there's a constant utility for egg. And that to me started to make sense when I was looking at it from the coming from that whole node season or rebase token season. Like, to me, the utility just added up within this ecosystem. So I know you may not have got as many chickens as you wanted to at the beginning, but again, like, to be able to participate within the beginning of Chikn, I think is always going to be somewhat of like an OG stamp within this space. But that's kind of my rant for that matter.
Yeah, completely agree. We've got Butcher up as well. Hello, and Dan's here. Jedi's lurking about as well. So basically, we put a call to action out because obviously we've had worm announcements and coming onto the market and things like that. So at this point in time, an added kind of dimension makes the game and the whole meta and the strategy around the game a little bit more complex but interesting at the same time. And we were just, because we're in the middle of writing this kind of strategy guide or basic strategy guide around it, just to kind of make it a little bit more clear for people. We just wanted to speak to people who are doing this all day, every day, and know the game inside out, and just try and pick your brain a little bit. So is there like a high level you can kind of give us with regards to the kind of worm and like how it changes the kind of game dynamics and the whole meta around that kind of thing? I'd love to just kind of listen in on that.
Yeah, of course. So are you wanting to know more about like strategies with worm farm?
Yeah, that'd be great as well. As I say, we're going to be trying to create a whole basic strategy guide for people, just trying to demystify it a little bit. And if we could maybe tap into a little bit alpha and like what some other people are doing in the industry and in the space, that'd be super helpful for the piece.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess before we dive into like the strategies behind worm, it's important to understand the reasoning behind worm. And so with this tritokenomics, we had feed, right? And feed is a capped supply with egg being infinite in nature, soon to be capped by the kg levels of our chickens. With feed, there's 12 billion in existence. When they released the original white paper, they gave a time horizon for how long it would take for feed to be fully minted. And it was about 1 year, 365 days. And, lo and behold, we're coming up closer and closer to that date. There's a wonderful resource out there called Chikn.world, which is tracking how much feed is left in the silos. But the reason why I'm highlighting that is because at the beginning, during the beginning stages of this game, we used egg and we would stake it, and we would then earn feed to then use to feed our chickens. That transitioned into LPing egg and AVAX on farmland after farmland was released into this ecosystem back in, I think, February or March. And the reason why egg AVAX LP is so important is because that is kind of what allows this ecosystem to continue to grow and become sustainable vertically as it continues to expand. So the importance of the egg AVAX LP is always at the front of these Chikn devs' minds. So with that being said, the main reward that we've been receiving for staking egg AVAX LP tokens on farmland has been feed. So now that we're getting closer and closer to feed being minted out, it's different than running out, right? To date, I think we've burned almost 7 billion feed out of that 12 billion feed cap. So feed will still be around for maybe the next 12 months, 24 months. It'll slowly start to continue to be burned as our chickens continue to be leveled up. And yeah, so that's been the main reward for Egg AVAX LP. So now that feed is almost fully minted and gone, they're transitioning into what's called LAF, which is life after feed farming. And that is now the worm token. Now, the worm token is going to be very important for this ecosystem because it's going to be the main reward for providing liquidity with egg and AVAX into this ecosystem. And underneath all of our 5,000 farmlands that are in existence, there is this worm farm that is basically a 5 by 10 depth of space for us to burn egg to continue to dig deep, and then also deploy worm. And worm right now is going to be the reward for providing Egg AVAX LP. So you're earning that worm through LPing, and then you can deploy that worm into your farmland to continue to dig deeper. Now, the use case behind worm is that as you deploy more worm on your farmlands, it's going to decrease your foraging time. And that's something else that we kind of have skipped over, but basically we're sending out our chickens and roosters onto our farmlands, foraging these resources, and the base time that it takes to complete a forage is around 24 hours. Now, the size of our chickens and roosters can also affect that time, but for now, let's just go with the idea that it's 24 hours. So as you deploy more worm into your worm farm, you're going to be able to decrease that foraging time down to a more manageable time. Also, the utility for worm will be when crafting gets rolled out within the foraging rollout. So right now we're in version 2. Version 3 is going to be crafting, of which point we'll be able to use all these resources that we've been collecting on our farmlands and start crafting these coveted equipable items that we can then use on our chickens and roosters to potentially give us boosts when it comes to foraging, but also for the later gamified elements that are going to be released, which is going to be chicken quest, cockfighting, and potentially other gamified elements that we have yet to learn about. So with worm, I would say the strategy would be to continue to provide LP and Egg AVAX on farmland, earn worm as your reward, and you can use that worm to deploy onto your worm farm and reduce your foraging time. And also, as you're digging deeper, you're revealing this space. And when blueprints drop, that's going to be the area where we're finding these blueprints. Blueprints will also be an NFT that will be tradable on the Chikn.farm native marketplace. At which point, you can either buy and sell these blueprints, or you can use these blueprints to then craft these items, at which point you can then trade those items on the marketplace as well. So I guess we're kind of limited in how we can really strategize how to fully implement worm, because right now it's kind of a one direction path of which we're going down with worm. It's use worm on your farmland, continue to build out your worm farm, find these blueprints, and then you're going to have to use egg, fert, and also worm to then craft these equipable items that we'll then use within the ecosystem, but which will also be available on the marketplace to either buy or sell. So I don't know if that answered your question properly. Maybe I went off on too much of a tangent.
No, that was such a good description of it. So, is there any kind of speculation around how the variation on equipable items will be used? How much weighting does per se, if there was if you were to forge a specific item and that was to stand you in greater stead with regards to kind of cockfighting, is there any kind of information around that yet, or will people be kind of clamoring over everyone to try and get specific types of items to increase their chance of having successful cockfights and stuff? Is that released yet?
No, it hasn't been. And again, kind of tying back into the beginning statements of how these devs brilliantly release these little bits of Easter eggs, right? So these guys, like in the past Medium articles, they released this image that was, a handful of cards, looked like trading cards. And let me see if I can find it. I think it's in the most recent Medium article. Anyways, there's like these series of cards, and they look like, it's in the article on Worm, Medium article on Worm. And you can see that like one of them looks like an axe, another looks like a helmet with a light. And they released 3 of the blueprints. One of them is the rusty pickaxe. You have the Avaxium adrenaline, or avian adrenaline. And then I think dirt was another one. But the purpose behind these items is yet to be fully revealed. I believe Sherbak in the general chat released that he indicated that there should be 180 of these items that will potentially exist within this ecosystem. They'll be found at different rates. The deeper you go, the better chance you have at finding a rarer blueprint at which you'll be able to then buy or sell or craft these items yourself. And the purpose of these items for right now is going to be to assist us further with foraging, both with our chickens and roosters, but also mind you that, right up on the roadmap coming up is breeding. We don't know really the deets of breeding. These devs are very tight-lipped on when they're going to release stuff, how it's going to be released, and what it's going to look like. There's speculation, again, man, there's so much that I want to cover, but I try not to make it too complicated because we can kind of spiral off in many different directions due to the extensive decision tree that we have within Chikn. But predominantly, the main strategy would just be to have a farmland and try to maximize it out, right? Try to expand it to as big as you can. I see Jedi Blockmates. You've been unmuting. You want to jump in here?
Hey, dude. Thanks so much for blowing my mind. I mean, I think there's way too much here to even begin to cover in an hour or 2 or even 5. But I've got one question and one question only. If I wanted to get in on this whole thing, like right now, can you give me essentially a TLDR version of how I would go about it and what the most effective strategy would be to get up and running and to get this thing going, and obviously to make it sustainable from an experience perspective and then also from an earnings perspective? Where do I go? What do I do? And how do I go about doing it?
Got you. That's a fantastic question. One that, we've discussed a lot about on how to properly answer it. And I guess I would have to ask back is like, how much capital do you plan on deploying? Because that will affect different strategies for entering into this ecosystem.
So I would effectively just pass the question back onto you and say, well, what would be, something that would be ideal? I mean, and you're not allowed to say, well, $50,000 because that's not going to apply. It's kind of like,
right.
Is there a strategy around, say, $1,000 or not, or $3,000 or $5,000? I mean, what is the acceptable amount to enter into the ecosystem that isn't going to completely destroy you, but will still make it enjoyable? I think that's what I'm looking for, is like, where is the good balance? I mean, obviously, if we look at like something like Pravada way back when, I mean, the entry point was, I think it was probably around $50,000. It was kind of like, if you did anything less than that at its peak or close to its peak, it wouldn't have worked. But obviously, we're not at that stage in the market anymore. And I'm just curious as to where that sustainable level is with something like Chikn.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I would say if you're the type of person that's looking for more of a hands-off approach, if you're able to afford a chicken, I would aim for a chicken because there's only 10,000 chicken and only chicken lay egg. The constant demand and utility for egg cannot be uh, understated. There's going to be constant demand, constant utility for egg, and we have to look at the trajectory of this game. Like these devs are building an entire ecosystem with a platform that's going to allow other projects to bridge over into the Chickenverse. And again, if there's a project that launches on Ignite, which the devs just released the white paper for, again, the constant demand and utility for egg is going to go up. And with this upgradable nature of these NFTs, as you feed your chicken, you're pouring money into your chicken to get more money out. So the inherent nature of these chickens is that it's going to be a constantly rising floor price, which is what we've seen up until this point within the chicken ecosystem. And I foresee that it's only going to continue to grow. For instance, the mint price for a chicken back in November of last year was 1 AVAX. The current floor is at 92 AVAX. Now the price of AVAX is down, but the floor price is reflecting that the loop of the tritokenomics, that more money is funneled in these chickens. So buying and holding a chicken and allowing it to just lay egg every day is a very hands-off approach into this ecosystem. The floor, again, 92 AVAX. The size of your chicken does matter, kg size, but again, kind of stripping it down to some simple basics, hands-off approach, get a chicken. If you're more hands-on and you want to participate within the DeFi elements within chicken, I would recommend getting a farmland and then providing AVAX LP on that farmland to start earning rewards. The beautiful thing about this ecosystem, because of its sustainability, is you can use those rewards to compound into a bigger position within this chicken ecosystem, such as then working your way up and then buying a rooster, or working your way up and then buying a chicken if need be. Or you can just simply have a more passive approach and just continue to earn rewards on your farmland. And if you want the holy trinity, I would say a chicken, a rooster, and a farmland. Get some LP, stake that on your farmland, and you're going to be rocking and rolling. And then, of course, that scales up from there. Like if you do have an abundance of money that you want to throw in here, you can't go wrong with grabbing a handful of chickens, a handful of roosters, and a nice farmland, throwing in some LP, and start to earn rewards. Now, again, the trajectory of this ecosystem allows for this massive potential that I cannot really speak to. I can't really express it and put it into words, because as a whole within the NFT space, what we're seeing is that like there's these waves that hit this that hit this space as a whole. Like we're coming out of the PFP wave, right? We're like everybody was loving these Bored Apes, these crypto punks, and I'm not saying that they are still not top-notch blue chip projects within the space, but slowly and surely the murmurs and the whispers of upgradable NFTs is starting to catch on. And again, we're a year into this project of Chikn. Chikn is miles ahead of what feels like everybody else in this space. And I really foresee a tidal wave coming within this space. And it's going to be a tidal wave of upgradable NFTs. And to really position yourself ahead of that wave is going to allow for you to capitalize on this wave fully, kind of like what we saw with the PFP wave. And on top of that, like the gaming industry as a whole is something that I think is not really something we've seen within crypto, right? Like the whole idea behind crypto gaming is to be able to own the assets that you're using to play with in this game. And what we're seeing with foraging now is the introduction of off-chain resources. And in order to forage, we have to send our eggs and fert off-chain. Now, what this is doing is it's slowly bridging this gap. We've talked about this on the Bokcast. People that are much smarter than me try to explain this to me, and I'm just kind of trying to regurgitate it here. But we're bridging this gap between Web3 and Web2, where now we're sending our on-chain tokens off-chain, at which point the devs have alluded to their vision of having an app, a Chikn app, where you can download this app on your Apple phone, your Android device, what have you. And now you're able to play and interact within the Chikn ecosystem from a Web 2 experience where you do not need prior crypto knowledge. You don't need to know how to set up a MetaMask. You don't need to know how to protect your seed phrase, all of this stuff. You're able to interact with these on-chain tokens because they are now moved off-chain in a very simplistic manner and yet still participate in this game. So as you look at the expansion of this Chikn ecosystem, there's really no telling the potential of where this could go and the slice of the pie that these devs are going after with $150 billion a year mobile gaming industry. And like that's the trajectory of where this is going. And I know it's hard to fathom, but when you really dig into the grassroots of this project and you see how these devs maneuver and how they operate, and you see how organically built this community is and how strong and connected it is, it's hard to deny that this is anything other than a unicorn project that has potential that I don't even think we can really fathom right now. And as you can tell, it gets me excited, and I may be biased to this parabolic rant that I go on, but this is honestly how I feel, and I love to talk about Chikn because it gets me really excited. But did that answer your question, Jedi Blockmates? Sometimes I just spin off, so you can stop me at any time.
No, dude, you answered the question, and what I find really interesting about it is that you speak to kind of the excitement that you're obviously experiencing around this thing, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Whether it is this whole idea of speaking about the so-called silly topic that is chickens. I mean, for goodness sakes, we're sitting here and we're talking about chickens and eggs and worms and farmlands and the rest of it, and it's like, if you're someone on the outside looking in, the first thing that people will think is like, I mean, this is crazy. Yes, it is crazy, and there's a whole lot of craziness.
Yeah. I mean, we look at games like Farmville, right? And how many users play Farmville.
This is better than Farmville, though. This is the point that I'm trying to make.
100%, man.
It's kind of like, you had this meteoric rise in NFT projects, from a year ago, year and a bit ago. And how many of those projects are actually still around? I think very few. And the ones that are around, like Grant was saying earlier on, they're either ghosting or ragging as we speak, for the most part. And then the others are just kind of like idling along because they don't have any ideas. They think they need, the numbers to make this thing work. Whereas you've got, these crazy Australians who have built this game, and, they just keep on innovating. And I mean, if that isn't like reason enough for you to actually want to get curious about this game, then you have no business being in the GameFi space or in the blockchain gaming space. I mean, I think this whole project is testimony to, lunatics like yourself who get passionate about it. And there's a reason why you're passionate about it. You see longevity, you see sustainability, and you obviously see something that I need to actually get involved in. I'm like sitting here listening to you. I'm like, why have I been fading this thing for so long? That's my thinking around it. And it's like, I genuinely want to actually check it out, and I genuinely want to get involved to some degree as opposed to just commentating or writing about it. So thanks for that, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the answer was perfect as well, because I think the answer in and of itself is probably just give us the structure to actually go ahead and release this kind of strategy article, because we can break it down into passive or beginners strategies, more middle to medium budget, and then kind of active participation. So that's as soon as you laid it out that way, it just made complete sense to structure the article that way as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes me really happy to hear that, Jedi Blockmates. Honestly, like I guess to me, it can be somewhat frustrating being in the project and knowing how this is potentially the biggest sleeper in all of crypto. And it's like, I want to share it with other people. And sometimes I like overshare and I can throw up a lot of information. So I'm glad that it's resonating and hitting and sticking. But yeah, man, the simplicity of chicken, like it's a universal concept. Like everybody knows chicken lay egg. Everybody knows that if you have a bigger chicken, it's going to lay more egg. And I mean, how long has cockfighting been around for? You know, cockfighting is an age-old pastime, which brought communities together, and they would, you know, all sit around and gamble on cockfighting. And hearing the devs speak about that transition into cockfighting and how, you know, there's going to be a replay feature. And I mean, just imagine in 6 months from now when you see your Twitter timeline some replays of a cockfight that went down in the Discord, and you have spectators. Like I foresee transitioning into Twitch and like live streaming either the cockfighting or the chicken quest, which they've alluded to, which is going to be like a combination of Minecraft meets Among Us meets Farmville. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but I like, to me, it's just really exciting. And yeah, I mean, this, it's, I just get at a loss for words, as you can tell, because sometimes there's so much to talk about too, you know. I mean, speaking on past experiences, you know, myself and two other co-hosts, we started up what was called the Chikn Bokcast. We started it up towards the end of July, and you know, we started with the initial intention of just doing a 30-day period where we're just going to, you know, transition from Discord voice chat, where we spent a lot of our time, over to Twitter Spaces and just continue to talk about chicken, because we are a bunch of crazy, passionate people that not only love crypto, but love a blue chip project that is just a giant sleeper within the space, you know. And we transitioned over to Twitter, and we were able to talk about it, only chicken, like a niche specific project that exists over on this smaller volume type of chain, such as AVAX, which is slowly getting money that's trickled in from ETH to Solana to ADA to Cardano to, and then to AVAX. Like slowly it's becoming a bigger and bigger platform. Like back when Chikn launched in November of last year, like the NFT space as a whole within AVAX was a very different place. Like there was not many projects. The volume was incredibly low. I think like the highest market cap on avaxnftstats.com was near 8 million. And to see how far it's come within a year, like, my goodness, like I'm bullish on AVAX as a whole. And then let alone you take the leading project on AVAX, which is Chikn, which has the highest transacted token by volume underneath AVAX itself, which is Egg. Man, I mean, there's just there's a storm brewing over here with Chikn, and you know, it's yeah. Go ahead.
I have one more question, and then I think Butch needs to obviously chime in here as well. I see he's also a speaker. But my last question is, what is kind of like the end road, end game, the nirvana of this game? And I mean, if you were given a choice, what is it that you would love to achieve in this game at this point in time, without looking at the future, but just right now? What is the nirvana point?
That's an interesting question. So you're saying like taking away the future and just like looking at it right now, nirvana, with the game that we have right now?
Yeah. So I mean, if you were like looking at the game in its present form, what would you say would be your ultimate wants and goals to achieve?
That's a very tough question. I'm not sure I'm fully understanding it too, because to me, like what gets me excited is the journey of building this gaming foundation that's set to be continuously rolled out within this ecosystem. Like to me, it's not reaching the peak of the mountain, it's the journey along the way. The man who enjoys the journey will travel much farther than the man who enjoys the destination. And again, hearing the Chikn devs always talking about their vision, somebody asked Cluck Norris, who's one of the greatest public speakers I've ever come across. He was the one who gave the presentation at AVAX Summit in Barcelona. That was foreshadowing Rooster. But somebody asked him what he saw happening in 5 years, and he gave such a cluck answer. He said, world domination is our goal. But he also said to have the word chicken synonymous with upgradable NFTs. So like, to me, I guess that would be somewhat of like a nirvana type moment when people are talking about upgradable NFTs. And, you know, this can not just be NFTs that we have come to know and love, but also, you know, you think of the potential of upgradability when it comes to something like a credit card. Like you look at something like an American Express credit card, and you introduce some sort of upgradable NFT culture within that, right? Where you have a user that has a credit card that's an NFT, and that user uses that NFT or that credit card and then earns points. And then they can now burn those points to then upgrade their credit card to then have more rewards. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is something that can be, it's a wave that's coming. It's a tidal wave that's coming that's going to completely captivate the space. So for me, like, I can't say that there's a nirvana point right now because there's so much yet that is to come. And these devs are positioning themselves to be the pretty much, I want to say, the creators of this tidal wave, because, you know, I haven't seen this space as a whole, and I don't know who's working on what in different projects and whatnot, but they're definitely the lead. They're definitely leaders within this tidal wave, and they're definitely pushing the momentum towards that. And soon it's like everybody's going to be talking about it. And then for that to happen, and then all of a sudden people are saying, what's the OG project? What's the project that did it first? Similar to how CryptoPunks was labeled as like the first PFP project, and then that just blew up. Like, that would be a nirvana moment for the CryptoPunks project. And so like, when you fast forward in time, and now we have this entire game foundation that's rolled out within this Chiknverse, and now people are talking about upgradable NFTs. Oh, who did it first? And then they're pointing to the Chikn devs, and then they're pointing to this Chikn project as a whole. I would say that would be somewhat of a nirvana moment. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, you did, and thank you for that. Here I was thinking that you were going to tell us that you wanted 50 chickens and 65 roosters and 45 farmlands, but I think you gave way more insight. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's a goal, man. 100 chickens, to own 1% of the supply of chickens and just be pumping out egg every day. That's also a major goal, you know. But again, everything in due course. But again, like, I think Blockmates in the blog post that he put out, he was talking about how people have kind of started to remove the dollar value of what's being transacted within this ecosystem and substituting that for their enjoyment of playing this game. Right now, it's idle gameplay. It's this DeFi complexity that has become simplified with this Chikn architecture that's been placed on top of DeFi as a whole, but it becomes very simple. And, you know, coming from a non-DeFi background into this space, I can tell you guys that I have learned so much by being within this ecosystem and by playing this game. It feels like it teaches me something about economics. It teaches me how to be a proper DeFi participant. It teaches me how to be more of a long-term thinker, because again, what these devs are doing is they're incentivizing gameplay, and in doing so, they're teaching us how to become long-term thinkers and investors without telling us what to do, right? And when you look at this, the setup of the egg DAO, which is going to come into fruition here in 2023, they did it completely different than how I've seen other DAOs be established within this space. Typically, you know, when a project launches and then they create this DAO really early on, they're giving degens and investors within this project power over a treasury that they may not be capable of handling properly. And what these devs have been doing with this egg DAO is setting it up for a year after the initiation of this basically Chikn game that we've all been playing over the last year, where all of a sudden all of our decisions are going to have these consequences, right? Like, what we're seeing is that if you haven't been compounding into this ecosystem and using your egg to either build up your LP position so you can be earning more feed, or using your egg to expand farmland to then have a better LP position, or using your egg to feed your roosters, like, all of a sudden you find that you're behind the mark, because what we're experiencing is a game of inflation. And in inflation, you can out-inflate yourself by not participating in this model. And all of a sudden, what you thought was a big position at the beginning is now a small position compared to the people that have been compounding within this space. So it's like a vacuum that just sucks you in, and it becomes very attention consuming, where it's like every decision that we make, there is a consequence. There's good consequences and bad consequences. So again, like what I'm referring back to is that it's teaching me how to become a more strategic investor. And now what this is leading to is, again, the creation of the egg DAO, where the participants within this ecosystem who have been making proper decisions over this past year are going to be in a fantastic position to have a seat at that egg DAO, which again is going to somewhat control the trajectory of where this project goes. And the first and primary asset of that egg DAO is 800 million feed, which again was a very early indicator at the potential value that feed will hold within this ecosystem. Mind you, it's going to be minted out fully within the next 2 weeks. I think Chikn.world is saying the 11th of December. Now, you want to talk about a very low cost entry into this ecosystem, but with the potential to maybe make some gains. Feed is very underpriced right now. And again, feed is the only way that we can level up our chickens so that we can lay more egg. We've already described and I've already expressed how valuable egg is going to be within this ecosystem for the constant demand of egg. So intrinsically, the value of feed is also tied to egg. As the value of egg goes up, so does feed, because again, feed is what makes more egg from your chicken. So a simple strat, a long-term strat would just be to buy and hold feed. And just because, again, by holding feed, you're betting on the long-term success of this ecosystem. It's the same, not the same, but it's kind of considered a liquid chicken, if you want to call it that. But again, I spinned it off on an entire rant once again. Obviously, you guys can tell I missed the Bokcast to a certain extent. I would talk about chicken every day for 100 days straight. I love to talk about chicken. I could talk about it 4 hours. I could talk about it all day if needed. But again, I'll pass it back to you. Any questions that you guys have, I'm here to help answer, or anything else you guys would like to talk about, I'm also willing to get down with.
Awesome. What I think we can do, I've got like 10 minutes left. If there's any questions from anyone who's listening, or Butch, or who else have we got up here? Smedley, just chime in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Clint already told you everything, but as to what a chicken farmer does every day, what I look forward to is I wake up in the morning, I feed my chickens so I can make more egg, lay more egg. And then I like to use that egg to, you get what I'm saying, take care of my roosters. And then I got this little farmland that I'm building up. So, trying to that's probably my nirvana, or whatever you guys were saying, however you say it, but that's my little nirvana. I'm trying to pop a legendary tile on this farmland, since like you need egg to upgrade your farmland, and it's like you don't know what you're gonna get, so you might get a legendary or you might just get a grass tile. I get all the grass tiles, but yeah, that's what I be doing in the morning with my eggs and my chicken farm and stuff.
Just part of the morning routine now.
It very much is, especially for rooster holders. They have to be fed one egg every 24 hours to continuously lay FERT. So it definitely captivates your attention. It's like there's plenty of people that come in the chat and they're like, damn, I forgot to feed my roosters today. Like, those poor things are starving. So yeah, it's like it becomes a part of the routine. And like Butcher said, that is nirvana. Like, I can't tell you how much joy I get from jumping in the chicken farm, jumping in the coop, feeding my chickens. I'll turn on Chicken Radio. If you guys haven't, I think you posted it in the blog, but like Chicken Radio, like always banging. What you gonna do with all that junk? Right on cue. What you can do with all that junk, right? So the Chicken Radio is always banging. I mean, there's always a decision to be made within this ecosystem, and yeah, man. Yeah, Butcher, you nailed it. Yeah. But yeah, those grass tiles that you're revealing on farmland, like, bro, soon when these equipable items come out, you can bet that they're not just going to be equipped to chicken, roosters, and our offspring. Those equipable items will be able to be placed on our farmlands, at which point those could then start generating resources when you send out a chicken or rooster to go forage. And just again to touch on the level of expansion that these devs have in mind for this ecosystem. Back in Barcelona at the AVAX Summit, Cluck gave this wonderful keynote speech, right? And in this speech, he said, with their partners at Multichain, they plan on bridging over $1 billion in Ethereum assets over to AVAX to join the upgradable NFT revolution. And what we're seeing with farmland is the first real potential of something like that happening. What these devs have in mind is that they want to bring utility to any NFT. Any NFT. If you have an NFT in a different collection on a different chain, there could very well be a time in the future which you're able to use that NFT to go and forage on farmland, start collecting resources, and then craft these items. And again, it speaks to the interoperability of this metaverse and where the chickenverse is really heading to. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. If you want to jump in here, Blockmates.
Yeah, no, all good to go. Yeah, is there anyone else? Any additional points? Any questions? If there are any questions, you've got the best people in the group to ask right now, so you can get it straight from the source. But if there aren't any additional questions, I think that's been great. It's been a huge help for us personally just to get this article nailed down, because as you say, it's an ever-changing landscape, so a strategy guide has to be kind of continually updated. But I think you give us a good blueprint and a good kind of structure around how the article can be written. So we'll try and get that turned around as quickly as possible. Send it over. If there's anything you'd add, just shoot us some comments back on the doc. And can't thank you enough. It's been great, really insightful, and it's also really it's really impressive to see how engaged the community are, particularly yourself, Clint. Obviously, it's it's impressive to see how much the team have cultivated this great kind of community, and obviously very enthusiastic around it, and for good reason as well. So yeah, thanks again, and I'll send the doc over as soon as it's ready. And if there's anything you could add value to there, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And again, it's not for me. Go ahead, Smedley.
I was going to add, Crypto Queen has a spreadsheet that links the traits and what their usability is on the land for mining different resources. So since you're jumping into a chicken and or a rooster, and the land is the key, holding place, you might look for one that has a mid-grade element producing tile. There's wood and there's stone and there's veg, which all are pretty simple. Stone a little bit above that, but then the Avaxium.
I think we lost you, Smedley.
This Twitter Spaces app, it's always rugged people. But if that sheet's available, what we'll do as well is we'll make sure the recording gets pulled, and we'll push it onto YouTube, and we'll leave all those kind of links for people to find in the description as well. So that's a big help.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any final points before we wrap it up?
I just wanted to say, it's not just me that's very active and vocal within this community. We have a lot of builders within this community. A lot of them have put out a lot of fantastic resources. They can be found in the chicken docs on chicken.farm, some of those links. So yeah, there's a lot of great information out there. But also, Blockmates, I wanted to ask, were you around for the 1-year chicken birthday anniversary this past weekend? Were you able to get a party hat?
I wasn't. No, I've to be brutally honest, I've been kind of so back to back and so busy with the content that we're pushing. Any joyful things in my life are kind of getting put on the back burner at the minute, so completely missed it.
No worries, no worries. Well, myself and a few other community members, wanted to wish you a happy birthday. And again, thank you for having us on the space today. But we wanted to gift you a party hat, because it's not a true birthday without a wonderful party hat. And in my opinion, these are going to be the first equipable items that this Chiknverse has ever seen. Right now, they're just collectibles. But again, the devs gave the reference to the RuneScape and the value of those party hats. And I think that it would be these are going to be pretty cool collectibles. But we would love to gift you one on your birthday today. And again, man, thank you for having us on the space today. It's been a true pleasure and an honor.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks again. And we've got
Crypto Queen. She's up on stage.
Yeah, we've got a hand up. Yeah, is there any final points?
Firstly, happy birthday. Secondly, thank you very much for my farmland. I won it in your competition. And it was just to say that that spreadsheets that Smedley was talking about and Clint were talking about, they're always permanently pinned to my profile. So if anybody wants to find them, they can just click on me and they'll find them pinned at the top of my profile.
Awesome. Really useful, and thank you very much. All right, thank you everyone. That was really great. We should probably do a recurring one of these every couple of months because there's so many updates coming out. So yeah, look forward to it. And thanks again. We'll make sure the audio is pulled and put on YouTube because you only get like around 30 days from Twitter Spaces, I believe, and it's not the greatest format to listen to content on. So we'll make sure that's done and make sure everyone is notified about that as well. But thanks again and speak soon.